So now I'm excited to introduce the next part of our session, which we will be hearing from the Houston Grand Opera's new opera about homelessness in Houston, titled Another City. So I would like to welcome to the stage singers, Cecila Duarte. My apologies. Hey. So Cecila Duarte, Alejandro Magallón, Yu Sanford. And we are definitely thinking about Emily Treagle today as well. After the performance, we will be bringing Alisa Magallón and Jeremy Johnson of Houston Grand Opera will join them on stage for a discussion. And we will be doing the discussion at this time and then moving forward with performance. Would you like us?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Testing. We're getting there. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alisa Magallón. I am the Associate Director of Programming and Engagement at Houston Grand Opera. Thank you so much for having us here. My colleague, Jeremy Johnson, and I had a great pleasure to work on the development of an opera called Another City. I hope many of you were able to come and see it last month at Ecclesia. It's because of the work that you're all doing in this community that we were able to share stories. The same stories that we just heard in the keynote are so important to share. We had a really incredible long process, which our associate director of New Works, Jeremy, is just going to talk a little bit about how we came about doing an opera on this topic and a little bit of the process.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Alisa. My name is Jeremy Johnson. I'm the dramaturg and associate director of New Works at Houston Grand Opera. It's my real privilege to work with composers and librettists on developing new operas for our Houston community. And this piece came about from a series that we call Song of Houston. And that's been around since about 2007, I think it is. And has commissioned and developed about 30 to 35 new operatic works that have, ranged the topics from, there's a piece called After the Storm, which was about the great storm of 1900. There's a piece called O Columbia, which explored some storylines with NASA. So we've had a real privilege of engaging with different communities all over Houston to tell these stories on stage, and that's really at the heart of it what opera comes down to. It's telling stories through music with the power of the human voice, and it's no more complicated than that. And so Another City came about through that initiative. It was commissioned in 2016, I think it was. So this has been, 2017. So this has been a 6-year project in the works. The composer was Jeremy Howard Beck and the librettist was Stephanie Fleischman. And the two of them, they, when creators apply for a program or an initiative like that, they, try to put their best foot forward and do some research into what might be interesting for the company and for the community. And so Jeremy Howard Beck Googled Houston for a few days, and he ended up finding a bunch of resources and articles and data about Houston's success in reducing the homeless population. And he was very inspired by that. And he brought that to his collaborator, Stephanie Fleischman. And so the two of them put this proposal together of, no real storyline in mind, but, something. How can we celebrate Houston's achievement and also bring light to the ongoing situation? And how can we help bring voice to those organizations that are doing this work? And when they came to Houston, so they they got the commission, and we invited them to Houston for some research trips. And that's where so many of the people in this room really became an integral part of the creation of this work. So Jeremy and Stephanie spent 2 full weeks at 2 different times over the course of 2 different years, coming to Houston and interviewing people experiencing homelessness, and like I said, many of you in this room who have worked with them. Of those interviews, they collected, I want to say something like 120 hours of audio footage that they got transcribed, and what they put together was this piece that they titled Another City, because they wanted to capture the feeling that they had in doing this research, that really it felt like they were crossing into another world that is invisible to most people in the city of Houston, but is always around us and always present. And that was the feeling they had in doing their research. And, they kind of saw the navigator, a profession you all are very familiar with. They saw the navigator as somebody who could cross that bridge between one city and the next. And, that's a line in the show as well. So they wanted to capture that feeling of putting an entire city on the stage. And so what they ended up with was actually about 15 different characters telling a number of different stories. Obviously, every individual has a unique story, but they put about 6 different storylines all on stage at the same time. It was a very kaleidoscopic and layered portrayal of Houston. And then after those 2 weeks of research, what we did for the development of the piece really was we did 3 or 4 different workshops of it. So, over the course of 6 years, it takes quite a long time to develop an opera. And it took us 6 years. We did, I think, 3 or 4 different workshops. And by the end of it, we're very, very happy with the result, and very pleased to have heard that it made quite an impact on the audiences that attended. Yeah.
So alongside of us producing this piece, what's really important that I want everyone in this room to know is that just because the piece is done doesn't mean our work with you is done. So we have been working for as long as we could, as long as we've had access and know how we can be part of what you do, because a lot of times, how does an opera company work in a service organization? We don't know. But what we found is that we connect on a human level. And simultaneously, through the 6 years of the development of this piece, we've been running an initiative called Seeking the Human Spirit. And in the end, what we have found is that music reaches souls, and we can connect to each other. And the people doing this work, you sitting in these seats, the people you're serving, you all need moments of connection. And we do that. That is our business. And so we're coming into spaces when services are being provided, working with your clientele, working with your staff, and bringing music into those spaces. So if you want that for your teams, for your organizations, for the clients that you're serving, I brought cards with me. Find me afterwards. We're actually going to be with Bread of Life on the 17th. Yes. We were at Bridget's Hope, at Ecclesia, at Search, the House of Tiny Treasures. We were at so many places providing all sorts of programming we do anyway, but you don't have to buy a ticket to access the programming that we have. We want to be in spaces where you are with the people you're serving. So please, my name is Alisa. I work at the opera. Find me afterwards. Let's get us into those spaces. We did just want to ask a couple of questions before our singers presented, just so you guys had a little bit of insight to what it's like as a performer taking on characters, doing a work like this. So I just wanted to draw attention over to our artists. We have Cecilia, Alejandro, and Bean here. Bean was one of the rehearsal pianists, and you were actually in the pit as well. Is that right? So the pit is when the orchestra is accompanying the entire cast of singers. And then Alejandro and Cecilia both were part of the workshop process that Jeremy was talking about. So I'm going to have Jeremy ask our first question, and then we'll get to some music.
Yeah, well, so you both were part of the workshop process of it, and you saw the piece change and grow over time and develop in different ways. So one thing I would ask you to comment on is what are some of the challenges and some of the joys of learning contemporary opera and new works, and how do you approach music that has never been performed before?
Hi. Well, I love this question because to me is a challenge and a joy. The same thing. It's like the fact that nobody has done that before, that work before. So there's no reference. And that's the challenge, but that's also the joy of like bringing something new to life and being able to work with the creators directly, right? With living composers and see, what works, what doesn't work. Does, do the words you put on the paper come across the way you want it to and the way they intended to? And is the music a reflection of those words? So it's like quite an enjoyable process, but also quite difficult because the creation of an opera, as Jeremy said before, like there's so many changes that happen from the very beginning until the work is put on stage. So we as performers have to be ready and flexible to come and, make all those changes possible as fast as we can. And yeah, I mean, it's just like another thing that I really enjoy is like telling stories of today, telling stories that matter to people, that people can identify with.
I would like to piggyback on what Alisa was saying just now. There's such an intimate connection with when you're doing work that is based on real people. And it's not like you're, doing this fiction when you're not singing Rodolfo, in Bohème, it's and in my case, I did a couple, I workshop a couple of the characters, and I got to meet the one that you're going to just hear, Manoj, the person who was the role was based on, and it was like when I saw him, I was not expecting him to be in one of those events, and it was like, oh my gosh, my idol, So it was both great responsibility. It was very moving. And at the same time, it's a great privilege.
Yeah, I mean, when you work with living composer and living librettists, we have such a privilege to just go through the character development from the very beginning. And as Cecilia said, it's never been. So it comes to us really live. And this opera is so special because it's all about real human beings, and we're talking about humanity. So I feel like huge responsibility, and just it's such a privilege to work on new work like this.
So I think we're going to hear some of the music. One of our singers fell ill this morning, wasn't able to join us, but we are still going to present two different pieces from the opera Another City by Jeremy Howard Beck. I'm going to have Jeremy kind of set up this scene, and we'll let Bean take the piano, and Ceci and I can step off stage while we get it set up.
Thanks. So this first scene that you'll hear is the very opening of the opera. This is the character's name is Manoj Mukherjee. He is based on an interview that the creators had with one of the clients experiencing homelessness, and this person that they interviewed actually kept in touch with us through the organizations over the last 6 years. And, when Alisa is here talking about, connection and human connection, there was a really beautiful moment at the end of our third performance. The individual was at that performance, and he walked up to the singer who was playing the role that was based on his life, and that singer, and he connected from a distance over space. And they just like saw one another and recognized one another without ever having met before. And they just walked up to one another and hugged and started crying a little bit. And it was a really beautiful moment. Reminds us what humanity is really all about and how we can tap into that through music. So this scene is it's the opening of the opera, and it's kind of setting the scene of this character, Manoj. And this is a character that bookends the piece and comes in and out throughout the opera. His character receives services from the Beacon and represents kind of one of the storylines of people who have found peace with living on the streets. And that's what we hear in this opening scene.
I sleep with my eyes open. I walk and pray. I ride the metro 3 miles to relieve myself. No accidents if I'm lucky. 3 miles back. I minister to folks along the way. I am a counselor to cigarette street marriages. The kid whose bag was stolen out from under him. Dog eat dog the other day. Love others as you love yourself. That's what he said. You can be who you dream, is what I say. I wanted to make my name in Bollywood, in India, where I was born. I still dream of Hollywood. Maybe one day.
This next excerpt that Cecile will sing for us is also from towards the beginning of the opera. Her character's name is Cassandra Smith. Cassandra's story was based off of an individual. Well, she was actually kind of based off of 3 or 4 different individuals that they interviewed. But the most prominent one that stuck out to them was an individual who, you know, when they were at some of these organizations and they asked people, you know, we're doing some research for an opera that we're writing, you know, would it be okay if we sat down and talked to you for a while? This individual just kind of looked at them and said, no, that wouldn't be okay. And that's, you know, that many people said that, of course. And then just about 5 minutes later, she came back and sat with them and then talked to them for 3 hours. And so in the opera, Cassandra Smith is a veteran. She's been living on the streets for 9 months. And as you'll hear her explain in this aria, she just couldn't really go home when she got back from the war. And throughout the course of the opera, Cassandra's storyline is one of the main storylines in the opera. And this is her day to move into permanent supportive housing. So a navigator has found her a home, and she's questioning whether or not she wants to show up at her appointed time.
Been living under this bridge for 9 months now. Touching carp in the bayou, reading books by headlamp. Swinging by the beacon for laundry and a shower. When I got back from the war, I wasn't myself. I couldn't go home, do better outside where I need my dreams. Can you the day living out here for 9 long months. But now it's time, the navigator says he's finding a home. Have to do his show.
Please join me in giving another round of applause to the Houston